We're going to explore an unexpected tale from a location that not many people remember today, but it will definitely startle you. I'll kick you. As speculations circulate that Richard Kevin Harrison, also known as Rick Harrison, has been given a life sentence, the Pawn Stars community has made this startling revelation. Rick, who is well known for his pragmatic business methods and extensive expertise, is currently dealing with a significant legal problem that nobody anticipated. Make sure to press like and subscribe if you're interested in learning more about this subject so you don't miss any breaking news. Keep an eye out. After working in the Forgotten Nation for a while, we'll go back to work. That in itself is a positive thing. I'll give him a kick. Fans of the Pawn Stars are shocked to learn that Richard Kevin Harrison, also known as Rick Harrison, has been given a life sentence. Rick is well known on the program for his encyclopedic knowledge and pragmatic approach to business, but few anticipated that he would find himself in major legal jeopardy. Pawn Stars has been entertaining viewers for years by showcasing the daily dramas, difficult discussions, and intriguing world of trading rare antiques inside Rick Harrison's well-known pawn shop in Las Vegas. However, Rick's burgeoning television career has now taken an unexpected and sinister turn. However, what specifically did he do to merit such a harsh penalty? Let's examine the specifics of this startling case and the events that lead to this significant turning point in Rick's life. Born in Lexington, North Carolina, on March 22, 1965, Richard Kevin Harrison is a well-known American businessman and television personality. His family relocated to San Diego, California, when he was just 2 years old, and he spent the most of his early years there. Rick had epilepsy when he was 8 years old, which caused him to read a lot as a youngster. This helped him build up his remarkable historical knowledge, which would later help him in his work. Rick had a difficult upbringing. Due to his fight with epilepsy, he missed a lot of school and finally left school in his sophomore year, but his drive and curiosity remained unabated by this setback. Rather, he spent all of his time learning on his own, reading books on a wide range of topics, including business and history. Later, this self-taught method was demonstrated by his encyclopedic knowledge displayed on Pawn Stars. Rick began collaborating with his father on commercial endeavors as a youngster, honing his ability to recognize authenticity and value, skills that would be crucial to his future profession. Rick and Kim were married after Kim, his fiancée, fell pregnant when she was just 17 years old. Before separating, the young couple eventually produced 2 boys, Adam and Corey. Rick's father, Richard Benjamin Harrison, popularly known as the Old Man, started a coin and bullion business in Las Vegas, Nevada, in 1981, after the couple had been married for 8 years. By 1989, the company had expanded into the renowned gold and silver pawn shop, which would serve as the setting for Pawn Stars. The Harrison family made a calculated decision to go from a coin store to a pawn shop decades later, after seeing the greater potential for profit in the pawn industry. Rick and his father had to put in a lot of overtime to build a name in Las Vegas during the difficult early years. Rick frequently had to deal with challenging clients and even risky circumstances, which helped him develop and refine his bargaining abilities. Rick had gained recognition in Las Vegas by the early 2000s for his proficiency with a wide range of historical relics and antiques. The pawn store had gained notoriety as a location to find valuable and unusual objects, drawing both residents and visitors. He started promoting the concept of a reality television program based on the day-to-day operations of the pawn shop after seeing the entertainment potential of his enterprise. Rick ultimately got a deal with the History Channel in 2009 after years of efforts and denials. The first episode of Pawn Stars, which included Rick, his son Corey Big Hoss Harrison, his father Richard Old Man Harrison, and his buddy Austin Chumley Russell, followed the daily activities of the gold and silver pawn business. Rick went from being a local pawn shop owner to a television celebrity as the show became an immediate hit. He was a fan favorite because of his direct remarks, straightforward manner, and extensive understanding of historical items. As Rick bargained with clients looking to sell their valuables, his catchphrase, "The best I can do is become a legend," became famous. Rick stressed the instructional component of Pawn Stars, which distinguished it from other reality TV programs. Every episode had historical details regarding the goods that were brought into the store, and Rick frequently gave background information and context, demonstrating his extensive knowledge. Because of its broad appeal, the show became one of History Channel's most popular shows. The pawn shop grew under Rick's direction, drawing travelers from across the globe who wanted to see the stars or perhaps make an appearance on an episode. Sales of merchandise skyrocketed, and Rick took advantage of his notoriety by penning books, appearing in public, and even starting a restaurant. Pawn Star's popularity encouraged Rick to pursue other endeavors. The well-known individual, Rick Harrison, has been featured in periodicals, on several talk shows, and is now a sought-after speaker at the business of defense. Many Americans have found resonance in his success story, and he has gained respect outside of the entertainment sector for his direct business counsel. Rick, who represents several stars, is renowned for his direct style and keen business sense. On the show, he is the voice of reason, frequently controlling Chumley's sporadic mischievous behavior or his son Corey's ambitious purchases. After many years of working together, he showed reciprocal respect in his connection with his father, the elderly guy. Rick demonstrated his dedication to upholding his father's legacy by operating the company in accordance with the same values after his death in 2018. Rick had highs and lows in his personal life during the height of Pawn Star's stardom. Following the dissolution of his first marriage, he wed Tracy Harrison, with whom he spent 27 years before divorcing in 2011. Chumley was the ring-bearer during Rick's 2013 wedding to Deanna Barrett, which was performed by Danny Coker, his co-star from Cars. Although the majority of his personal life is kept secret, it does occasionally surface in talks on the program, displaying a man who is loyal to his family in spite of the demands of business and celebrity. Rick's business endeavors went beyond operating the pawn store. Adjacent to the gold and silver pawn store at Pawn Plaza is Rick's Roland, a smoking shop, bar and tavern. In 2011, he also co-wrote a license agreement for pawn transactions. His life and business are described in Steals and My Life at the Gold and Silver. His approach to entrepreneurship has always been to continually look for new methods to develop his brand and broaden his company's activities. Rick has demonstrated an extraordinary ability to see value where others would miss it throughout his career. Viewers see him assess anything from antique relics to contemporary valuables, vintage autos to historical papers, on Pawn Stars. His knowledge appears to go on forever. However, he frequently consults specialists when things are outside his area of expertise, demonstrating that he is a wise businessman who is conscious of his professional boundaries. On the program, Rick has bought and sold a lot of things, some of which were fantastic bargains and others of which weren't. His knowledge of watches, firearms, and vintage American artifacts has frequently resulted in profitable transactions, converting small initial expenditures into significant gains for the store. A Super Bowl ring from the 2001 New England Patriots, which he paid $2,600 for, but which was worth far more, is among his most well-known acquisitions. His interest in both history and precious metals was demonstrated by another noteworthy acquisition, a set of Spanish gold doubloons found in a shipwreck dated 1715. Rick has had a lot of bad events in his life. Most of them were caused by decisions he made. To be honest, his legal issues started in 2023, when federal authorities raided his residence in Las Vegas as part of a months-long investigation. The investigation's nature was first unknown to the public, which sparked a lot of internet conjecture. Fans and even some in the business were completely taken aback by the attack. Agents from the FBI, IRS and Department of Cultural Heritage Protection carried out a search warrant at Rick's residence and the gold and silver pawn shop near him. While authorities confiscated laptops, papers, and a few goods from the store's inventory, staff members and patrons who were present during the search were placed under temporary custody. According to witnesses, Rick's son Corey, who was at the store when the raid occurred, subsequently called the event surreal and compared it to a scene from a movie. Even as neighbors captured the incident on their mobile phones, Rick maintained his composure as the Secret Service took him out of the residence. As further information became available, The video swiftly became viral on social media. It was evident that officials were looking into charges of dealing in illegally stolen antiques, money laundering activities involving valuable objects going via the pawn store, and a complex tax avoidance plan. Suspicions sparked by transactions reported by financial institutions and grievances from previous business associates undoubtedly set off the inquiry. The History Channel halted Pawn Star programming in the weeks after the raid, and released a brief statement stating that they were keeping an eye on the matter and will decide appropriately once additional details were revealed. The pawn store for gold and silver was still operating. However, the legal thorn that hung over Rishi caused a sharp decline in its clientele, which started to impact the company's operations. Rick's aides vehemently denied any misconduct, calling the probe a mistake that will be resolved shortly. The public was reassured by his lawyer, David Marshall, a renowned Las Vegas lawyer known for representing high-profile clients, that Rick had always run his company honorably and in compliance with all applicable regulations. But as the inquiry went on, alarming information started to come to light. Authorities said they had discovered evidence that Rick had engaged in a sophisticated scheme to sell some historical objects at their true market value through private channels, while underreporting their worth for tax purposes. Investigators also charged Rick with intentionally buying stolen historical artifacts through middlemen. Included, according to court records later made public, objects from museums and private collections, as well as documents of great historical significance. A former employee, who had worked closely with Rick to get some of these expensive things, was partially responsible for starting the probe. The authorities received comprehensive information from the whistleblower on Rick's alleged usage of a separate accounting system for transactions he wished to conceal from official records. Rick had to appear in court a few days after being detained, but he was freed on bond the next day. Tax evasion, money laundering, trafficking in stolen property, and conspiracy to traffic in unlawfully obtained cultural treasures are among the main allegations against him. Rick vehemently disputes all of the accusations and will fight them in court, according to his lawyer, David Marshall. After that, the court case continued for over a year, during which time Rick insisted on his innocence. But his position grew more vulnerable as more information came to light, and former colleagues testified against him. The prosecution produced financial data, encrypted communications, and the statements of former workers who said Rick had given them orders to falsify documentation for a number of valuable things. Additionally, they offered proof that he had opened overseas accounts in order to hide the proceeds of especially lucrative deals. A string of text exchanges between Rick and an unnamed source on how to extract provenance from an 18th century paper purportedly taken from a university archive was one of the most damaging pieces of evidence. Rick was also accused of talking about how to set up a sale so that it wouldn't trigger the reporting requirements for big cash transactions. Rick's public image did not change during the pre-trial processes. He claimed he was being singled out because of his career and political beliefs when he made many appearances on conservative talk stations. In support of him, his followers organized rallies outside the courtroom during hearings and came up with hashtags like #RickFree. Many fans were deeply impacted by Rick, and many highlighted that he should be recognized for the wonderful influence he had on their life through his instructional approach on Pawn Stars, regardless of the accusations. "Rick taught me to love history in a way that school never could," one fan said. They encouraged those who were impacted by Rick's efforts to sign up for these virtual support groups. As the punishment was read, the courtroom fell quiet. Rick, who had maintained his composure during the trial, became very pale. Chumley, who had been at the trial every day to support his mentor, was spotted leaving the courthouse in tears while his son Corey sat behind him with his head in his hands. Legal professionals were taken aback by the punishment, which many claimed was out of proportion to the offenses Rick was charged with. The judge stressed that Rick's role in the trafficking of stolen objects had resulted in irreversible harm to historical and cultural heritage, in addition to the financial crimes which were reflected in the sentence. According to the judge, Rick had participated in systematic destruction and robbery of priceless things for his own benefit, despite his appearance as a defender of history and legacy. Rick's legal team promptly appealed the sentence, claiming that because the offense was non-violent, the punishment was unjustified and harsh. Additionally, they asked that Rick be released on bond until the appeal, but this motion was turned down. The news soon became dominated by the picture of Rick in handcuffs. His punishment elicited a range of responses from the public. Many ardent supporters expressed shock, claiming that the trial must have been a miscarriage of justice. Academics and members of the cultural heritage community, however, applauded the severe penalty as an essential deterrence to the trafficking of stolen items. An unparalleled outpouring of support from Rick's fanbase was triggered by his predicament. A petition calling for a review of Rick's case was signed by more than 100,000 people thanks to the Heart for Harrison initiative. The life penalty for non-violent offenses, according to supporters, was excessive and represented retaliation rather than justice. They encouraged everyone to assist Rick by signing the petition and contributing to his legal defense fund, among other actions. Rick's son Corey stated that even if his father committed mistakes, he should be given the opportunity to atone and not be sentenced to death in jail. This showed how supportive the family was of Rick during this trying period. Rick was swiftly withdrawn from the History Channel, which aired Pawn Stars. The program was formally cancelled, and all repeats were taken from the broadcast schedule. Regardless of Rick's legal issues, the channel said in their statement that they were deeply disappointed with his conduct and reaffirmed their commitment to preserving historical items and cultural property with respect and legality. Rick continues to have a big influence on the pawn industry and reality TV. He established an empire that went much beyond his pawn store before running into legal troubles. He opened a number of pubs and restaurants in Las Vegas as a result of his business attitude, and he intended to build more in other places. Even though the number of customers initially decreased after Rick's legal issues, the gold and silver pawn store, which is currently run by his son Corey Harrison, is still a well-liked tourist attraction in Las Vegas. In an attempt to relaunch the business, Corey placed a strong emphasis on openness in all dealings and worked with educational institutions and museums to encourage moral collecting. 6 months after his father's imprisonment, Corey addressed the valid concerns expressed at the trial and talked about the difficulties of maintaining the family company in an emotional interview. He said, "We've put in place stringent new procedures to confirm the origin of every item we buy. I'm determined to be a part of the solution, not the issue, because what occurred was wrong." Chumley, who has always viewed Rick as a father figure and a mentor, talked openly about his mixed feelings. In a podcast interview, Rick stated, "I've learned so much from Rick, good business practices that I will carry with me forever. However, I have to acknowledge that he has a different side that I may not have wanted to see or never noticed." Although it has been challenging, the Harrison family is still focused on repairing their company and image while helping Rick during the appeals process. Once mostly known as Rick's often impetuous son on the program, Corey has demonstrated remarkable business aptitude and is now entirely in command of the family firm. The affection and support from fans across the world has been extremely touching for the Harrison family. "The encouraging messages you've sent have been a lifeline for our father," Corey said in a recent press statement. "He's read every letter sent to him and has drawn strength from knowing so many still believe in him despite everything. Rick needs your support more than ever. Please continue to support Rick and the Harrison family by hitting like and subscribing to the channel to stay with them on this journey." The family has held prayer circles every Sunday outside the pawn shop, where loyal fans gather to show solidarity. If you can't make it to Las Vegas, the family encourages supporters to send letters, cards, or even photos of memorable moments from the show that brought joy to viewers. These small gestures make a big difference to a man facing his darkest hours. "My father taught me everything I know about this business," Corey said. "I'm working to build on the positive aspects of that schooling. Despite our significant missteps, this image has been a part of Las Vegas for more than 30 years, and I'm determined to keep it there for another 30. From a modest pawn shop owner to a reality TV star entrepreneur and now a convicted felon facing a life sentence, Rick's story has been nothing short of incredible. His journey from a well-respected businessman to a public person who lost his credibility demonstrates how swiftly things can change, particularly in the harsh spotlight of celebrity culture. The fall of Rick, a guy who knew a lot about history but eventually unable to prevent himself from using historical objects to further his own demise, has been described by some as having an almost Shakespearean quality. One of Pawn Stars in Trouble's members, Austin Russell, often known as CH. Tonight Lee is incarcerated. As the judge delivered Ed Austin's final decision, the Las Vegas audience erupted in applause. Chumley Russell fell in disbelief as the sentence's weight overtook him. Onlookers were struck speechless by the tragic spectacle, which brought the case's tremendous emotions to light. What caused the well-liked reality TV personality and the legal system to have a startling courtroom confrontation? Everything you need to know about the fierce court case that resulted in the well-liked Pawn Stars' surrender is provided here. According to Wid, Chumley is one of the most fascinating personalities on reality TV. He is commended for his sense of humor, laid-back demeanor, and unmatched ability to add authenticity to each episode of the popular History Channel program Pawn Stars. His almost 10-year broadcast career featured remarkable incidents like his acquisition of a pinball machine, his proficiency with video games, and his catchphrases. But Chumley's impact extends much beyond his work on television. His impact on the market for collectibles, his role in making the gold and silver pawn shop famous, and his deliberate choice to establish his own brand all demonstrate how he went from being a typical pawn shop employee to being a cultural icon. Being likable was the cornerstone of Chumley's television career. Chumley refused to allow preconceptions define him because of his innate charm and unshakable dedication to being himself, even in the face of early criticism, which included being called the clown of the business. He instead focused on being an expert in particular items, which helped him get a spot as a vital member of the Pawn Stars ensemble. He became a fan favorite because of his performance, confirming his status as the show's breakthrough star. Chumley's ability to establish a close connection with the audience is what sets him apart, and his realism struck a chord with people all over the United States. Chumley's business endeavors demonstrated his smart thinking, but his television work brought him fame. He earned millions of dollars by diversifying into a confectionery apparel line and personal appearances, after using the show to establish his personal brand. Later on, this would pay for his defense against the startling accusations that would impact his devoted fan base. The Pawn Stars' popularity took Chumley and the program in rather different directions. With more than 500 episodes and international distribution, the History Channel series quickly became one of the most popular cable TV programs following its debut. Strong production qualities and the show's structure made it the most entertaining and educative reality TV program. The people enthusiastically loved the informed figure they saw on film, while Chumley dealt with the difficulties of unexpected popularity. At first, they gave him a lot of support, and his in-person appearances attracted sizable audiences, demonstrating his notoriety outside of the program. But throughout the years, tensions persisted because of the stark contrast between his on-screen character and his developing interior conflicts. Chumley stated in a 2017 interview with Entertainment Weekly, "I've lived two completely different lives, but you feel invincible when you're famous. I'm resolved to savor every second, particularly since I'm recognized wherever I go." While the exhibition continued to concentrate on objects and historical negotiations, this resolve drove him into an ever more opulent lifestyle. Chumley's personal life grew to include a home, expensive automobiles, and a sizable jewelry and shoe collection. His opulent social media posts received millions of views, transforming his modest upbringing into a quite different public persona. There was a sharp contrast between professional achievement and personal luxury, both of which reached unprecedented heights, beginning at the pawn shop in the mid-2010s. As his own brand grew, including his Chum's Candy Store on Las Vegas Boulevard and a lucrative behind-the-scenes product line, the Pawn Stars audience peaked, with special episodes attracting over 7 million people. Chumley's career was in danger of failing though, as he battled the demands of celebrity. These problems were difficult, and he frequently blamed them on the abrupt change from anonymity to prominence. In a rare open interview he said, It drives me crazy to go from being a regular guy to someone who can't even go to Walmart without taking 500 pictures. I nearly lost everything when I resorted to coping mechanisms. The show's growing professionalism stood in sharp contrast to this emotional turmoil. The disparity between Chumley's private life and public image has widened considerably by 2016. Although viewers loved the show's portrayal of him as a kind, somewhat innocent guy, his real life had taken some worrying twists. These would shortly be made public in the most spectacular manner imaginable. After years of extravagant lifestyle, Chumley finally found himself in legal hot water. At first, the March 2016 raid on his Las Vegas residence was connected to an inquiry into sexual assault. In a news conference, Officer Rodriguez clarified that they had carried out a search warrant as part of their investigation. Additional charges unconnected to the first inquiry resulted from what we found during that search. Websites examining the possible effects on Chumley and Pawn Stars' futures rapidly made the raid a hot issue in the entertainment industry. Fans were shocked by the terrible information that TMZ shared a week later. Throughout Chumley's house, authorities had found firearms, narcotics, and drug paraphernalia. One admirer remarked in a widely shared social media post, "This is not the humble person we know on TV," which was a long cry from the cheerful demeanor audiences adored. Fans were left perplexed by this circumstance, which impacted their perception of the show. He never gave the impression of having these types of issues. This conflict between his private life and public image appeared to be the last straw. Prosecutors put up a case in a matter of weeks and charged the reality TV personality with many felonies, including possession of a firearm and drugs. If found guilty on all counts, Chumley may spend up to 20 years behind bars. In addition to having legal ramifications, the allegations were a serious danger to Chumley's meticulously constructed public persona, which served as the cornerstone of his whole professional and financial success. The lawsuit rocked the entertainment world, with analysts predicting that it may be the end of one of the most well-known personalities on reality TV. The extent of the finds at Chumley's home was described in startling detail in court documents. According to evidence records, officials discovered a variety of firearms, including assault rifles, as well as a large number of drugs and associated items. In a dramatic change of events, however, there was insufficient evidence to support charges from the sexual assault inquiry that led to the first search. The defendant established a way of life that was intolerable in terms of the danger to public safety. Examine a prosecution document that suggests the worst punishments possible given the number and kind of objects found. As Chumley walked into the courtroom on the first day of the trial, all eyes were on him. Chumley's dejected face was highlighted by camera flashes as he walked into the courtroom. His teammates from Pawn Stars were conspicuously missing. A TV personality who had amused millions of people was now going to court. There were major infractions of the laws pertaining to firearms and restricted drugs in this case. An armory of firearms and a significant amount of illicit drugs were found during the prosecutor's search of the defendant's residence. As pictures of the confiscated goods were shown in court, the trial swiftly grew contentious. During the heated cross-examination, Chumley was observed looking down at the floor and shaking his head sometimes as especially devastating information was delivered. When police questioned whether Mr. Russell's testimony could demonstrate that he was operating a narcotics distribution business, tensions increased. Although there were no scales, packing materials, or distribution lists, all of which are usually linked to trafficking, Chumley's attorney questioned the amount and kinds of drugs discovered, arguing that they may indicate personal use. Particularly during the guns interrogation, the courtroom became agitated. Chumley's attorney inquired about the need for appropriate permissions and storage for collections of weapons, particularly antique rifles. Chumley seemed anxious, whispering to his lawyer as the guns expert answered. Unless he was on the witness stand, the court cautioned him to be quiet. In their testimony, legal professionals discussed possible sentencing criteria. Significant jail term was frequently associated with these offenses. James Wilson, a former prosecutor, stated in his testimony that the mix of firearms and banned narcotics made the legal position more dire. Chumley's case centered on the fact that he had no past convictions and said that his notoriety had caused him to make bad decisions. His lawyers said that his public persona fostered an atmosphere in which customary distinctions were dissolved. His counsel contended that my client's judgment was impaired due to an excessive amount of whirlwind. He emphasized that Chumley had been an exemplary public person in many ways and had never meant to hurt anyone. Fans watched with great curiosity as the trial came to a close. This was a significant test of Chumley's public image in addition to being a legal dispute. This represents the possible demise of a television personality whose popularity was based on his likability and good nature. The trial's main focus shifted to the defense negotiating, with attorneys on both sides debating possible remedies in great detail. Beyond only affecting Chumley's personal freedom, the lawsuit had the potential to seriously harm his image, profession and future position on Pawn Stars. Chumley's career was taken into account, with his reputation being destroyed and damages estimated to be in the millions. Whatever happened, his career on Pawn Stars was on the line. Fans gathered around the courthouse on the last day of proceedings, some carrying signs of support and others sporting Pawn Stars paraphernalia. After Chumley's plea agreement in the state of Nevada vs. Russell case, the mood became even more heated as Judge Michael Davidson got ready to pronounce his sentencing. Judge Davidson started the case by carefully weighing all aggravating and mitigating circumstances, as well as the plea agreement reached between the defense and the prosecution. As Chumley stood with his hands quivering slightly at his sides, the room was so silent that you could hear the rustle of papers. As part of the agreement, the defendant entered a guilty plea to 1 count of weapons and 1 count of narcotics, and the other counts were dropped. Chumley's face was still strained, and his attorneys looked at one another warily. The gravity of the accusations, however, required the court to address them. The court adamantly said that there was a serious risk to public safety from both illicit drug use and guns that were not properly registered. The court decided that Chumley would be placed on probation for 3 years, get therapy, be subject to routine drug testing, and have all of the things that were taken during the search seized. The new requirement was the most startling aspect of the deal, though. If he broke any of the conditions of his probation, he would be automatically sentenced to 3 years in jail without a trial. Chumley needed to comprehend these words completely. After months of uncertainty, and the prospect of spending decades in prison, Chumley actually felt that this decision was a crushing blow. What should have been a relief turned into an overpowering realization that his freedom now rested only on faultless cooperation. Sweat was streaming down his cheeks in the form of beads as the judge read the entire set of stipulations. The roaring in Chumley's ears progressively muffled out the judge's voice as she continued to state the terms of the sentencing, which included the defendant's need to perform 200 hours of community service. Chumley's attorney realized something was off when the courtroom started to spin. Even though he put a strong grasp on his client's arm, the tension continued to rise. Chumley fell forward abruptly. His ragged breathing reverberated around the courtroom as security hurried to him. Chumley, whose career had been based on his loving and carefree on-screen demeanor, had suddenly passed out in the middle of the courtroom. The scene was photographed by those in attendance, and it quickly rose to the top of the global entertainment news agenda. In addition to being shocking, his physical fall brought to light the emotional stress he had been under during the trial. Chumley received visits from friends and co-workers, including Rick Harrison, outside the courthouse. Many were concerned about Chumley's condition, but his supporters came together to show their surprise and worry at the trial's unexpected conclusion. Words of support and fear for Chumley swiftly erupted on social media and entertainment websites, with hashtags like #ChumleyStrong and #PawnStarsFamily popping up everywhere. The recognizable smile of Chumley reappeared 3 days after the courtroom event. In a video that he posted from his house, he admitted his mistakes and accepted the repercussions. Chumley made an effort to keep the video humorous, but it was obvious that he was taking it extremely seriously. Despite the fact that his physical and mental state had not totally healed, he tried to reclaim some humor by saying, "I know the doctor was right, facing better choices." However, there was a discernible change in his public image. Chumley started to rethink his views on himself and his work, and in a shocking development, History Channel bosses allegedly encouraged him to stay on Pawn Stars following his recuperation. An unnamed insider claims that the network viewed his legal troubles as a chance to create a genuine redemption plot. Chumley's following remark appeared more serious than ever, despite the fact that no formal confirmation was given on particular deals or future plans. He said in a sobering statement, "I made a mistake that could cost me everything because fame clouded my judgment. I guarantee my followers that I will make the most of this second chance, for which I am thankful." Chumley appeared to have adopted a fresh perspective, and was concentrating on getting back to doing lawful company operations and completely adhering to the court's orders. Despite the overwhelming love from his supporters, Chumley remained modest, and made it clear that his top priorities right now were taking care of his health, and making wiser choices going forward. He gave a cautious response when asked if he would consider going back to television. "I'm only concerned about staying healthy and making wiser choices at the moment. For many years the show has been my family, and I want to bring them joy once more." Chumley's life has taken a different turn as a result of his legal struggle, and it appears that he now has a genuine redemption tale to share. Instead of getting sucked into controversy, Chumley is turning his attention to the good and moving on, according to media analysts. His admirers hope that he would make a return in both his personal and television lives. With the network giving him another chance, and the fervent devotion of his fanbase, many are left wondering what the future holds for this TV personality. A resurgence may represent a significant change in Chumley's public perception as well as his professional trajectory. The fact that there is still a lot of interest in Pawn Stars and that many fans are in favor of Chumley's eventual return to the program that made him famous is a highlight rather than a disgraceful conclusion to his career. His transformation from an obscure pawn shop employee to a TV celebrity has been chronicled by these devotees. A courtroom television program can be a sobering lesson of the dangers of celebrity. Viewers were horrified by the fall, which not only saw a man at his breaking point, but also perhaps signaled the start of a more genuine public image that would eventually show through the carefree character. How do you feel about this modification? Please leave your opinions in the comments section below the video, and remember to press like and subscribe to ensure you don't miss any of the next fascinating tales.